Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for finally, another Chelsea preview live stream. Of course, there's many other things to discuss today, but we are back. The international break is finally over, and it was probably one of the worst international breaks we've ever had because it wasn't even like we could just like switch off for a bit because it was just like we have the worst kind of news left, right, and center. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what is going on? What is going on? I mean, of course, we will preview Chelsea versus Brentford game. There will be a large majority of this stream, of which we will discuss. But of course, there is also the big elephant in the room about Chelsea's potential new owners. Of course, the shortlist has been finalized of 4 people. No mystery bit, of course, we touched on that the other week already. But still, the Ricketts are still in the running, and we're not a fan. Hence why myself, as well as a lot of other content creators, including Con and Pice and Matisse and Jan and whoever else, like everyone basically, tried to get involved to organize a protest against the Ricketts bid to buy Chelsea Football Club. We will get into more detail of that a little bit later. But if you live in the UK, if you live in the somewhat surrounding areas of Stamford Bridge, make sure you get yourself to Stamford Bridge for 12 p.m. for midday before the game tomorrow. Get involved in a protest because, you know, we need to do something. Like, the fact that they've made the shortlist is ridiculous enough, really. We will focus on that. We will get into more detail on that in a little bit. Let me just wait a little bit for more people to tune into the stream. But if you're here now, maybe you're also watching this later on, once this has turned into a video, be sure to subscribe and smash the like button for me. But before we get into more details, let me introduce my 3 wonderful guests. Let me start with Pice. Pice, thank you for coming, as always, mate. But yeah, how are you feeling? Is it the game that's on your mind? Is it a protest that's on your mind? Is it the whole new owner situation that's on your mind? What are you feeling these days?
Yeah, mainly the new owners, I guess, on my mind. The Premier League, for me, I feel like we're going to finish third, or I guess the best we could finish is second. But yeah, really looking towards the new owners and kind of see what's going to happen there. Obviously, we have the protest, which we'll touch on. But yeah, I'm still looking forward to the game tomorrow. I just think, obviously, we're in a bit of a weird situation in the league because, as I said, third, I don't think we're going to drop out the top 4. I think we're too good for that. But yeah, just a bit of a weird one, hasn't it? Really, ever since Abramovich has been sanctioned, I kind of don't know what to think towards these games. But I'm just trying to enjoy Chelsea as much as possible.
No, I do agree, mate. Absolutely. It's like you say, it is a weird one with the whole like where we're not really fighting for much in the Premier League, at least. But at the same time, if we take it too lightly, if we lost say 3 games in a row, then top 4 would be in danger. Even 2 games in a row, really. But, you know, hopefully things don't become too much of a distraction for the team. So far, they've handled it incredibly well, of course. But yeah, it's weird times. It's weird times. Con, let me get to you. Let's see if you're on smoke here as well. First of all, thank you for coming. Similar questions I just asked to Pice, really. What's been bugging you the most, I guess? Is it thinking about the game? You know, can we get back or can we continue winning? Obviously, tomorrow is a little bit less so, but being done with the international break also means Real Madrid is just around the corner, playing them on Wednesday, of course. So, you know, from that point of view, there's a lot of things to be worried about or thinking about. But the owners is still the biggest one, at least for me, I would say. Is that the same for you, Con?
Yeah, it's same for me, bro. The owner situation is was on my mind. Because don't get me wrong, the Premier League's still important. Don't get me wrong, but the new owner's going to be, you know, the next 15, 20 years. So it's a long time, isn't it? It's a really long time, and the Ricketts seem like favourites at the moment, and that's the big issue, big issue. So it's kind of hard to think about the actual football when, you know, these guys can get hold of your football club. So I'm trying to think about the game tomorrow, but it's not really on my mind, bro.
I hear that. I absolutely hear that. We'll get into that in a second about like who's favorite, why is someone favorite or not. Clutch, thank you for joining as well, of course, mate. As much as it might be boring, it's kind of the big question at the moment. So, similar question to you: what's really on your mind? Can you get yourself excited for the game itself as well tomorrow, or is it more other things surrounding Chelsea are flying around in your head?
For me, it's kind of a little of both. I mean, the uncertainty of the ownership is something that's out of my control. So all I can do is voice that one, I don't want the Ricketts, obviously, which is the big one right now, and then trying to get ready for the games because we got big games coming up, whether it be this weekend, getting back into that form we've seen before the international break, and then the big game on Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever it is, against Madrid. So for me, I'm not looking behind, I'm looking forward. So I am still excited. It's been 2 weeks since I've seen Chelsea play. I'm a little bit starved for good football, so watching international games. But yeah, so
well, at least your team qualified. You don't want to cry about things.
Oh yeah, such a great qualification that we had there, didn't we? No, it
better than not qualifying. Let me tell you, bro. Let me tell you.
Oh, I know that. I feel that. But yeah, no, it's the uncertainty is still worrying, but like I said last stream, the Ricketts are here for a reason. The best thing we can do is make sure everybody knows that they're not welcome. So that's where I'm at.
That is fair. Not yet touching on the protest. Let's actually talk about the latest news surrounding the owners. And obviously, as usual, I'll go to Pice with this. Conscious said that the Ricketts are at least arguably favourites. Is that how you'd paint it as well, Pice? Because it seems like there's differing reports from different outlets, and equally as usually reliable outlets. So it's kind of difficult to judge because some are saying Boehly's favourite, some are saying Ricketts is favourite. It's kind of difficult to judge, really. Obviously, we'll see whether the situation changes with/after the protest tomorrow. But for the time being, it's kind of a weird situation because, Broughton seems to be dodgy. Pagliuca seems to be dodgy. I mean, Ricketts is more than dodgy, but we'll get into that. Todd Boehly seems to be the only reasonable option. I mean, still, remember when it initially came out, Hans-Jörg Wyss and Todd Boehly, none of us were fans of this. Check a month later, whatever it is, and we're all like, please get Boehly. That's how bad the situation is, really. I still think Boehly could be reasonable, could be a decent owner. Certainly not like F us over completely as a club. So I'd be accepting of that. But the fact that 3 out of 4, potential buyers that make the shortlist are either can't, as of right now, buy us, or we really don't want them to buy us. It's not a great situation to be in, Pice, is it? But who would you say, according to what's being reported, I guess, is kind of in the driving seat, I suppose?
Yeah, I keep thinking personally it's between Boehly and the Ricketts. I just think I don't know what you guys think. But remember that report from Matt Law that came out a few weeks ago that said Boehly wants to be in place by tomorrow's game, which is Brentford. They feel like they can do it. So I feel like if it was going to be Boehly, they could have been in charge for tomorrow. And Rain always stressed that, it's going to be a fast sale. We want a fast sale, but it's kind of like dragging on. 1 minute it's improved offers. Next minute it's now we want to see if other people who weren't in the race could join other consortiums. It's weird. To be honest with you, I still think there's something fishy about the Ricketts just because they do have an existing relationship, and I do think that personally I think that Bruce Buck does want the Ricketts. Especially, they've got the expertise, obviously, building the stadium, and although Todd Boehly's Dodgers did do improvements, it's not like what obviously the Ricketts did, and what's being reported is that the stadium thing could be a major factor in the final decision. So even today, coming out, isn't it, about the Ricketts have employed, I think it's Jeffries, which are, according to one of their, is it spokespeople? I don't know. I can't even remember now, but they're one of the biggest US loan people, to hand out loans or something like that. So that doesn't really say good signs when you've got supposedly Ken Griffin with 30 billion net worth, who it could even more than fund the bid himself, to be honest with you. And now they're hiring.
So why isn't he doing it himself then?
Exactly, it's a red flag. That's what I'm trying to say. It's all fishy. It doesn't add up. Red flags everywhere, to be honest with them.
For sure. It's a difficult situation because none of them are great. I mean, Aranyak, sorry if I butchered your name there, put something good in the chat here saying, bidders who have been shortlisted are the ones who tick all the boxes. I don't think they've been considered from a moral or ethical point of view, which potentially, but he obviously continues to say that Matt Law said from here on. So from once the shortlist has been finalised, I guess is what he means by here on. These things would be considered, which should rule out the Ricketts, hopefully. Well, hopefully, but we don't really know at this moment in time who's ruled out, who's not ruled out. They don't seem to be ruled out. Obviously, Pies just mentioned there the existing relationship between Rain, who, of course, are the bank that Roman Abramovich put in charge of the sale, and the Ricketts. They previously together founded some sort of company. I forgot what exact kind of company it was, but they worked together previously and had a working relationship together, which in and of itself is a bit dodgy, really. Why is someone even allowed to be on the shortlist that had a previous relationship with the people that are in charge of the sales? Sure, you could say, well, if the Ricketts were normal people, not pricks, you could obviously say, well, that's unfair to them. Just because they've worked with them, they can't buy it. I get that, but you know what I mean? Then don't make Rain in charge of the sale. Then if they're reasonable people to sell the club to, then don't make a company in charge of the sale who have a previous relationship, because that could sway the deal and make it uncomfortable or unfair for other potential buyers. So that's obviously the weird situation. Before I get to Convitis, who obviously gave his thoughts a little bit earlier, Clutch, now when you hear everything that's being reported, what's your perspective on it? Because like I said, I think we've just touched on it to some extent already, but for me, the confusing part is I just don't understand why arguably 3 of these have even made the shortlist. Like, obviously, Pai said it there. Boehly said they could, or their consortium said they could have been in charge by this game. Obviously, you don't know how realistic that was. Was that always a statement? Well, we're ready. But obviously, the process was always going to be, we want to find a shortlist and we look at them in depth here again. And, it was probably never going to be as easy as their consortium probably tried to make it sound, just to probably come across well to fans as well, if I'm being perfectly honest, but who knows? But the thing is with the Ricketts, like we know so much about what they've done politically and, what we're not a fan of. But does anyone even know the Ricketts' plans for the club if they theoretically were to get it, other than that they want a new stadium? It's where we know nothing. So that's why it's like, for me, obviously it could be behind the scenes. They could know that, of course, but I just don't understand how they can make a shortlist when we don't even know what their plans to do are. All we know is that they've ruined the Cubs, basically, and it's one of the biggest baseball teams the US has or had. Like, it's dodgy, is it not?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things. Like, when you talk to Cubs fans, they're not too happy. I mean, they won, what was it, in 2014, I think is when they won the World Series. And then before that, I think they were like the longest club without a championship. It was like 60, 70 some years or something like that, because they just didn't get invested in until later on. But no, I mean, there's a lack of transparency within this process. So we just don't know what's supposed to happen. Somebody said it earlier, like they said they just check all the boxes, but they didn't really. I mean, you wanted somebody who wasn't going to be, what would be the word? Conflicting is what I'm going to use. But yet, here are the Ricketts, who have a giant past of problematic statements and views and ideas and connections politically. Why were they not ruled out? You ruled out the Saudis, and you're basically, I mean, the Saudis and the Ricketts, no matter what you say, one just has money. They would be on the same coin, really. We don't know exactly, because they're not, we haven't heard personally, but if you're going to say one to the other, like no to the Saudis because they could have ties to the government, could have ties to such and such, then you got to say it to the Ricketts too. So, I mean, for me, they're the same coin. I think Lewis said that yesterday, and I agree with that quite a bit. But as far as like Boehly goes, he's the only one who seems like he actually wants to try and care, versus everybody else who just seems like they want to own a big club in Europe and this is their chance to get one. For me, I still have like a 75%. I still hope something happens and Roman's able to keep the club and we can just move on with that. But this process is moving all entirely too slowly for what Chelsea needs right now. They do need this process to either be quick or they need Roman to keep it. So for me, it's just, there needs to be a little bit more transparency for me to have like a full idea of what I want to how I want to think about it, but I still, for me, it's Boehly or bust within the options that are to sell the club to.
100%, 100%. Con, let me go to you. It's obviously, I don't know if you watched the press conference, but watching the press conference of Thomas Tuchel a little bit earlier, he didn't really, obviously he could just be playing it, of course, but he didn't really seem necessarily bothered or upset or stressed by the fact that things haven't, concluded yet, the whole sale process. So, like, obviously, we probably all hoped that it would be done by the end of this international break. If I'm being honest with you, I never expected it to, even like 3 weeks ago, like a week before the international break. Like, really? We're talking about 2.53 billion pounds here, if not more. I feel like those kind of things just don't get done in 2 weeks. It just doesn't happen. Obviously, I'm not an expert on that by any means whatsoever, but that was just my feeling. And for the time being, it seems to have come true. But, Con, with that said, especially Luke in the chat said he's really just here for what you want to say. So, to hear what you have to say. So, Con, tell us what you have to say, because I line it slowly into the protest in a second now with that. But I just, like, if it's the Ricketts, right? Even we'll get to more sporting stuff and more, political stuff and, just unacceptable stuff of why, we've decided to organize a protest, shall we say. But everything we hear about them just sounds like they want to turn us into Arsenal, because they want to use it to make money, probably. So what do you need to make money? So you want to be in the Champions League. Okay, so we'll probably get enough funding to be in the Champions League regularly. But is that going to be the limit of our ambitions? And that's really what we don't want. And that's even besides all the other stuff which we'll get to in a second. Like, that's just why it's bad. At least Todd Boehly has a great record with the LA Dodgers. Of course, he only owns 20% of them, but it's still a great record, and he still seems to understand at least how sports franchise in America, clubs, operations, organizations work. And that's already good in my books.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know when you was going to finish your point there.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I just don't understand this process right now, because Rain are just going back on everything they said. They said they wouldn't want anyone with any sort of political views, and the Ricketts have political ties, with the Republicans. So that was a lie. They said to be able to afford to buy the club. Well, that was a lie, because what Pi just put in there and what Liam Tooney tweeted about 40 minutes ago from now, saying that they're going to employ someone who's a part of the number one leveraged buyout loan sort of firm in America, which just tells you all you need to know. They can't afford it. They can't afford it with their own money. Biblical losses was their sort of motto during the pandemic, which they furloughed staff that Chelsea didn't do. So Rain also said that they want to keep Chelsea ambitious, that they need to have enough money to invest in the team. I don't see where that's going to come from. You look at their, you just look at them with the Cubs. They had the opportunity when they went on that 11 losing streak to buy, and what did they do? They decided to tank, and that doesn't scream ambition to me at all. It really doesn't. It's Rain are doing my head in, because they're a bunch of liars. And it's because they have ties with them. Let's be honest, because that's the only reason why they're still entertaining these clowns, because they don't have a great track record with the Cubs. They can't afford to buy us with their own money. And, them as people, we don't need to talk about. We've all seen it, So Rain are just as guilty as, the Ricketts are right now, because they've really lied to this fan base. Absolute joke of a company. Really are. Fuming with them.
It's a weird one, really, because obviously it was Roman Abramovich that put them in charge of this sale. Now, the question is obviously, was Roman unaware that this was going to happen? Is Roman aware? Can Roman not be bothered? Because obviously there's other shit going on. Or is it a case of that he's okay with this? I don't know. Like, it's just a really difficult way to look at it. But the reason you said it there, we are organizing a protest, or we have organized a protest. I say me. It was first and foremost Matisse. But you got a lot of content creators involved. I mean, we would have loved to bank on the Chelsea Supporters Trust and We Are the Shed. We Are the Shed, at least they're doing a a banner, but they seem to have had some issues within their own ranks about what to do, when to do it. Obviously, people are busy, people are at work, so I understand that to some extent. But
see, Laurenz, can I make a point about this, right?
please,
So, we didn't organise this protest because it's what a select few people wanted to do. It's because it's what the majority of the fan base was saying and what the majority of the fan base wanted. And I'm not going to dig out where I shed because they can do what they want. But it kind of annoys me, this sort of elitist mentality some people have in this fan base, where it's you do what you or a few of your mates thinks what's best, because they're not. That banner is not what the fan base wanted. I'm sorry, that plan they have is not what the fan base wanted. It's what they wanted to do. So if you're going to be these guys who sort of speak for the fan base and, with the protests and stuff like that, with the banners, you have to act on behalf of the fan base, and they're just not doing that. When they put out that tweet and they was promoting it, I didn't even say thanks or good with the banner, because they can go fuck themselves, mate. I don't care. Not bothered. Anyone's got a problem with it, you can see me tomorrow. Say it to my face. Well, no one will. The amount of abuse I've taken from them and their cronies over the years, yeah, these guys don't care about the club. They just care about their golden share. Dickheads, man.
Fair. I mean, personally, I like the banner in and of itself, but the banner should have come alongside a protest, in my opinion. Especially when they've announced the protest or said if the Ricketts make the shortlist, there will be a protest. Now they have. They didn't organize a protest. It's just a bit weird. I mean, I will also say if there was no protest for the Super League a year ago, I would be a bit more understanding of how do you know a protest works or whatever? Like, how do you organize it? No experience. I understand that. But because there was a protest, which was partly organized by them, if I remember that correctly, so they know how to do it. They have quite literal evidence it works. So why on earth would you not do it? I don't really understand, but hey.
And bro, that's a question I was asking as well. I DM'd them. I literally not called them out, but asked publicly and replied to the tweets, and I got zero response. And I'm somebody who's got at least some sort of influence on Twitter.com. So your average fan who wants to know what the hell's going on, they're never going to get a response. How can you be for the people of the Chelsea fan base if you don't interact with the Chelsea fan base and only that core group of people who are involved in We're Shed and a select few match goers? I'm sorry, season ticket holders don't represent Chelsea Football Club. They don't. Because if it weren't for international fans and other fans all over the world, bro, Chelsea doesn't get sold for over £2 billion. We don't even get sold for over £1 billion if we only have a fan base in England. It just doesn't happen, bro. We're not in the position we are without the international fans. We're just not. And it's time people stop thinking they're better fans than everyone else. For once, can we just unite? We did it with the Super League and look what happened. Now it's pick and choosing what we want to do. The majority of the fan base says no to Ricketts, so that's what we should go with. But I don't know, bro. People have different sort of agendas and things going on behind the scenes. They don't want to tell anyone. If you don't want to be transparent, fairs, we're just going to try our best. If it goes well, it goes well. If it don't, it don't. But we'll try our best. But you could have been more transparent with us, So they left it so late to announce what they was going to do. Because that Brentford, the tickets for them, how long ago did they come out? So you're allowing people, even people who go to games as well, even people who actually go to games, but they might not go every single week. You're allowing them guys no voices, which in your eyes, they're the people you see as proper Chelsea. So it's not fair because you left it so short notice of people who ain't got tickets, so they can't have their voices heard. So, I just don't think it's fair, man. I really don't.
Especially when it's a Premier League game where obviously only season ticket holders can't go and tickets aren't sold to members. So we're not even at full capacity. So then it's even more important to give people a chance to at least be aware. But just to put it on screen, that's obviously the main kind of slogan. We can no longer just stand around. We must stand together now. The protest for NoToRicketts Protest, of course, tomorrow. Let me just get this banner off here so we can read it all properly. Tomorrow, 2nd of April, of course, just before the game, 12 o'clock midday UK time at Stamford Bridge, where the protest was against the Super League. So if you are in England, around London, in London, of course, get involved, turn up with banners, have your say, and but be peaceful. Don't make the whole road dirty, throw your shit away. Do you know what I mean? There's no need to be a twat about it because that the media is going to twist things, right? Or they could, right? So we need to be at our very, very, very best behavior. That's very important. Let me just get to the next one. And obviously we came up with two kind of sets of reasons or whatever. Number one is more of a political side of things. Obviously, I don't want I keep saying this on this channel. I don't want to necessarily get things too political all the time, but it's a protest. You know, part of the reason why we don't want the Ricketts are political reasons. So we need to talk about them. Let me just go through them quickly, and obviously we can get thoughts of the boys on that in a second. The protest against the Ricketts family and their bid for Chelsea Football Club is based on the following. Number one, Pete Ricketts, the problem I have with you people is what he said when addressing the black community leaders back in 2020. Well, that's not on. But, you know, Paul Cannavale apparently met with them. But that was organised by Bruce Buck. So who knows, you know, what's, do you know what I mean? Like, it's all just ridiculous. In leaked emails, Joe Ricketts claimed that Muslims were enemies and that Islam is a thing of evil and not a religion. Again, what the fuck? Like, that's my only reaction to that. The leaked emails also included denouncing Islam as a cult and mocking racist jokes. This was reported by the Daily Mail and Yahoo Sports. Crazy, like absolutely crazy. Todd Ricketts referred to COVID-19 as the Kung Flu. Again, like, what is this? Can we not just act like what how? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? Weeks before former President Trump's rally, who of course came out with that statement as well. Pete Ricketts is also against same-sex marriage, which massively contradicts Chelsea FC's work with the LGBTQ plus community. When speaking in 2013 about Laura Ricketts, a leader in Chicago's gay rights movement, he said, "My sister is gay, but I disagree with her on this issue." Again, your flipping sister. Like, come on, your sister. Despite Pete reportedly not being directly on the board, his public viewpoints being related back to Chelsea FC and tarnishing the club's image is of great concern. Personally agree with that, of course. We believe these points were overlooked due to the working relationship that exists between the Rain Group and the Ricketts, a conflict of interest that has seen them make the shortlist, of course, reported by the Telegraph and the Times. We therefore call for the government, Premier League and Chelsea FC to remove the Ricketts from the process. Remove them from the process, remove them from, do you know what I mean? Like, just make sure they don't get it. Whether it's removing them from the process, whether it's deciding for Boehly, I don't really care. Doesn't matter. What matters is that they don't get it. Obviously, some people will care more about things not being, you know, more. Some people will care more for sporting reasons, you know, and to some extent with some of the things that Abramovich has done and us not being, you know, complaining that much about it. I also understand why people say, well, you can't complain about political things now when you didn't with Roman. Fair enough if you think that. I personally disagree with you, but I understand why people would think that. But there are plenty of sporting reasons why we shouldn't be getting the Ricketts involved either. Pay cuts to the Chicago Cubs employees during COVID-19 at a time when Chelsea employees, of course, you know, paid by Abramovich essentially, remained on full pay. The Chicago Cubs fans' pockets are being milked for some of the most expensive tickets and fan experiences in the Major League Baseball to pay for the stadium while getting rid of their best players in a fire sale and without reinvesting in the team. Again, what? Like, we're not trying to be Arsenal. We're not trying to be Arsenal Football Club. So can we not do that, please? In 2019, Tom Ricketts stated that the stadium redevelopment project had gone around 100% over budget, implying that the Ricketts family had spent almost $1 billion on the stadium with no foresight. Again, foresight is really what's the most important thing if you're not going to spend stupendous amounts of money. The Ricketts claimed losses of biblical proportions, but want to be a part of a £2 billion plus ownership takeover. Of course, that's why they need the Griffins, but still, it's just nah. Like, you can't be doing that. Like, not just to us, also to the Cubs fans. I mean, it's ridiculous. How much they feel? Crazy. Tom Ricketts is threatened to move to Chicago Cubs out of Wrigley Field, that stadium, of course, if the plans for a larger scoreboard and additional signage failed, which could create problems with the Chelsea pitch owners, of course, if that was to happen at Chelsea. I mean, who knows what whoever's consortium's plans are for the stadium. I mean, it was reported that Todd Boehly would like to, or has at least looked into redeveloping and expanding Stamford Bridge in the same spot. So that's at least a little something, I suppose. The Cubs faced a federal review in 2019 over Wrigley Field not complying with the American with Disabilities Act. With the Americans with Disabilities Act. Not only this, but the ADA, of course, Americans with Disabilities Act. Compliance was actually worse after renovations. A disabled fan complained the stadium was less accessible after renovations, but the Cubs filed a motion to dismiss. Again, really? You're going to disadvantage disabled people? Like, absolutely unacceptable. The Chicago Cubs fans have complained about the club's inability to build on their MLB 2016 World Series win, leading to questions over whether the Ricketts will push for success over sustained periods of time. Therefore, again, we call on the government of Premier League and Chelsea FC to remove the Ricketts from the process. Again, whether they're removed, whether they're just chosen against, I don't care. It doesn't make a flipping difference. But what makes a difference is that people go there because, we've had 12 hours ish to start organizing things essentially until things started to be made public yesterday. It might not work out the way we want, but we hope it does, and that's why it needs as many of you as possible. So, like I said, if you live in the area, if you live around Stamford Bridge or around London, at least try to go there, get your voices heard, and let's hope we can have an impact. We had an impact with the Super League. Let's hope we can have an impact again. Obviously, some people are out there saying, write emails to the respective people. I'm not even saying that's a wrong thing. Do that too. But if people think a few emails would have stopped the Super League, I'm not sure. I mean, we don't know. They might have done, but we know that the protest did. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. Pice, anything you would like to add in terms of the protest?
No, I mean, it's what the fans wanted. It's up to the fans to turn up. I mean, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, social media, we've done the hashtags and stuff. It's clearly not been listened to as we'd liked. So we need to take action into our own hands. And I think this is probably the last real thing we can do to try and impact something and send a message to the board. I think if there's enough people there, it's going to get covered by the media, which is obviously what we want as well. So, I don't see a problem with doing this. We're doing it early enough that it won't affect the team. And if you've got a problem with it, then just don't attend. It's as simple as that. And if you agree with us, if you don't want the Ricketts in charge and want your voice heard, then get down there. Just try and support as much as possible. Bring banners, bring flags, do whatever you need to do. And yeah, man, I got involved with it because I just 100% agree that this is something we need to do. We saw the impact with the Super League one, and even if it's half like that, I still think it will have an impact. Because it's not until fans, social media is one thing, I keep saying this, but real life actions is a completely different other thing. And I feel like it has more effect than obviously social media because, I just believe that in general, personally.
I agree with you. I absolutely do agree with you. Con, let me take it to you. Anything you would like to add on a protest? Of course, Con and Pice will both be present. Obviously, you don't know what Pice looks like, but he will be present. So, that's good. We're trying to get involved. I mean, I would love to, but I can't exactly just hop over from Austria, can I? So I'm doing what I can from where I am.
Sorry, Laurenz. Apparently you can, because one of the guys that was giving me a bit of grief yesterday was having a guy, Alex Goldberg, right? And he was saying, well, if he cared that much, then he should just fly over from America tomorrow. So,
hey, I mean, if the dude wants to send me the money for a quick EasyJet flight tomorrow morning, I'll get involved. But I mean, maybe the Ricketts themselves will send me the money just to make sure I can be there. But we try. We try. Like I said, let me get it up on screen again so people are aware. At Stamford Bridge tomorrow, that's the 2nd of April at 12 o'clock midday. Get yourself involved. Clutch, obviously, you're in a similar boat as myself and I guess Alex Goldberg with not being in the very same country, which we need to be part of the protest. But what's your perspective on it? Obviously, not being necessarily in the content creator group that were part of it. What's your perspective?
I think because it was the night that Khan and Pius started talking about we need to protest. Something I said that night was there's a reason why they were here and why they're still involved or still in the running for getting this club. I firmly believe that protests are one of the only ways that this club understands how much we reject an idea or an ownership in this case. I don't, because the club is more than one owner. It's more than one team. It's an entire fan base, and that we all collectively want to support something that agrees with what we believe in, whether it be the LGBTQ promotions that they do or advocates for equality and the fight against racism. All those things are stuff that probably 95% of Chelsea fans agree with and want to keep going. And it's values that we all hold. So when you see a ownership that doesn't exactly fit those values, we don't want them representing us as far as ownership. And that's just one side of it. And they're just bad owners in the first place. You're talking about, and I know the guy in the chat keeps saying, "Oh yeah, we just want more money." It's like, that's not what I want. I want somebody who's just going to invest smartly. They're not going to do that. They're not going to invest in the team. They're not going to make the smart decisions. It's going to be more like Arsenal, who just go out and they'll spend money maybe once every 2 years. I'm not really all about that. I want investment. I want competitiveness year round, because Chelsea's one of the top 3 teams in England, so they should be competing for the title every year. They're not going to give me that. So that ticks one of my boxes. So for me, I think the protest was the only way to go. They didn't hear anything else we had to say, so now the protest is going to be the only way they're going to listen.
Exactly. And for those very reasons, ladies and gentlemen, again, if you are in and around London or in and around somewhere else and you are willing to make the trip from further away, then make sure you get involved. Make sure you get involved. Obviously, I understand it's difficult tomorrow because you can't even get tickets if you're just a member, not a season ticket holder. I understand that. So if you're not super close, I understand if you're not going without tickets, but hey, if you have the possibilities and the capabilities and the means to do so, maybe even without a ticket, get involved. Like I said, I would love to be there, but things aren't always as easy as the world is trying to paint them out to be. Just to quickly finish off this talk about potential bias, there's been some quotes coming out by Jonathan Goldstein, who is of course part of the Todd Boehly consortium. As far as I'm aware, there's not been any recent quotes by Todd Boehly. At least he's remained somewhat quiet on the whole situation. Personally, I'm never a big fan of anyone talking, whether it's now Jonathan Goldstein or whether it was Nick Candy or whether it was the Koreans. Pies, who did the Koreans get involved with now? Because good old Kim, started to be active again yesterday. Has that been confirmed, that who and what they got involved with?
No, not yet. I did ask her in DM, but she said Rain won't allow her to say it. So, yeah, I guess it'll be announced soon. But I mean, if it's not Boehly, I don't care. I want Boehly.
There you go. Just to read it out quickly, Jonathan Goldstein, obviously that's the one bad part. Well, I guess this is also a kind of bad part, but Goldstein, the bad part is kind of that he's a Spurs fan. That's obviously bad. Obviously, I don't know how die-hard of a Spurs fan, but not really a fan of that. But at the same time, if we signed Harry Kane, if he decided to choose Chelsea over Spurs, we would find that hilarious. So why don't we find it hilarious if Jonathan Goldstein decides to, I'm a Spurs fan, but they're kind of shit. So let me leave them in the bin and go to Chelsea. So if you look at it that way, you can always try to look at positives. But here's what he said. Here's the important part. It's all about the fan base. You have to carry the fans with you to maintain that brand, and you have to have a winning mentality. Todd Boehly, of course, has shown he can do that with the Dodgers in LA. You've got to be in it to win it. I mean, we are always in the Premier League, so please don't mean by that we don't want to get relegated. Excuse me. When was the last time one of the top 4 was available? Refers to Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and United. Probably last time we were sold. They are the 4 brands that have been the strongest in the Premier League era. If you look at social media, Chelsea dwarfed the other teams. I'm not sure if we dwarfed Man United, but maybe the other ones. I'm not a million % sure on the social media numbers necessarily. But yeah, the last time, am I mistaken here? The last time any of the top 4 clubs were for sale was when Abramovich signed Chelsea, was it not?
Didn't the Glazers buy Liverpool in 2010? Or not the Glazers, FSG?
They did, but were Liverpool in the top 4 then? I would assume no.
No, they weren't.
So that's why I was saying that. But yeah, I mean, Dynamo obviously trying to be negative as much as he can. Not sure who he supports. 15-year-olds going to be turning up tomorrow. Maybe it is 15-year-olds, but 15-year-olds are 25 in 10 years. 15-year-olds are 35 in 20 years. If they're Chelsea fans and they're proper Chelsea fans, they will be Chelsea fans for the rest of their lives. It doesn't matter how old they are. I hate this. I absolutely despise this idea that young people's opinions don't matter. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know who was young 40 years ago? Elon Musk was young 40 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what, like, the people that were young 20 years ago are now successful people that are changing lives, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in economics, whether it's in politics. That's what happens. Now, you can't just say 15-year-olds don't matter. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, if you want to come across like an idiot, then please say things like that. But, maybe that's what you're aiming for, and that's why you said it. Fair enough. But, do you know what I mean? Hopefully there's more than 15-year-olds turning up. But if it is just 15-year-olds, those are smart, as 15-year-olds. So fair play to them if that's who turns up. Con, Pice, I start with Con. Anything you would want to add on the owner situation before we move on to actually talking about the Chelsea versus Brentford game?
Just want to shout out to that guy who said about the 15-year-old comment, right? I don't see people. Why do they have a negativity towards this? Like, I've seen a lot of negativity towards this. Like, I don't understand it. Not one person has given me a valid reason of why they're being negative towards it. I don't get it. Because when We Are Shed was saying there was going to be a protest, nobody said that anything. Everybody's happy. So is it because you don't like who's promoting it? Because if that's the reason, then you're an actual loser, man. Imagine the future of your club and you don't like the people trying to fight back against it. So you're not going to do anything. Like, it's so dumb.
Sorry to interrupt you, Con, but if you read like his other comments, he's talking about how Chelsea deserve this because they've been getting away with blood money for years. Like he's somebody who's super salty about Chelsea, like Roman owning,
and now he's trying to paint himself as simply a wind-up merchant too.
Yeah, now he's like putting himself above everybody. Be like, oh yeah, you guys are getting what you deserve. It's all debt money. He's like some troll who doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just like one of the saltiest people I've seen. So I wouldn't even pay him any attention anymore.
Fairs. Right. If you want to do that on your Fridays, bro, just go into a random YouTube live stream and start talking shit and fair play. That's what you want to do, innit?
To be fair.
I ain't gonna judge if he's a wind up, then bro, you need to do something a bit more productive with your time. But you do you, brother. And just like to give my little thing in the protest. If you can come, please do, because it's a big thing which we're gonna try to do to save our club from the Ricketts. We've all done our homework on them and we know this is not what we want, you know, and if we don't do something, everybody will just regret not doing anything, you know. You don't want to be one of them guys in like 5 or 10 years thinking, these owners absolutely suck, and then think back, I wish I went to that protest. So exactly. you might as well, and you
like
know,
it does. Sorry, Con. It doesn't matter who started, organising the protest. That's not what matters. It doesn't matter whether you like me, whether you like Con, whether you like Pies, whether you like Matisse, Nini, Goldberg, whoever, George Benson. It doesn't matter whether you like us that are trying to organize it. That's the irrelevant part. Who is organizing it? What matters is what we're trying to do with the protest, and whether you like us or not. I think as Chelsea fans, again, whether you like us or not, we all love the club. So if you care about the club, we've tried to line out why we think the Ricketts are an awful choice to have as new owners. So if you agree with even just any of the points we've made, try to get yourself involved. Again, it doesn't matter who started. That's completely besides the point. Sure, it's potentially useful that it's content creators that started it because we have a following and that can have a reach. That doesn't guarantee anything, but it maybe makes it easy to spread the word initially. Of course, we also require a few journalists, and Nizar Kinsella and Simon Johnson have both got involved. I'm not sure I think Matt Law has as well mentioned the protest. We're trying to get Instagram, accounts involved, Twitter accounts, obviously YouTube channels. That's the whole point of that is just getting more reach. That's what matters in this sense. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing that's relevant. It doesn't matter who we are or whether you like what we do. That's not the point. Just focus on why we're trying to protest. And if you agree with any of those reasons why we're trying to protest, then turn up. That's what matters.
Bro, that's so well said, bro. And like so many people were like tweeting NoToRicketts and all that. And so many people are against it, right? So like you said, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that we are just like promoting it and getting the word out there. It's just that we happen to have a few followers on a certain platform and more people will see it. That's all it is. It's nothing to do more than that. It's just we just want as many people there as possible. And it's a Chelsea fan thing. I think we need to drill this home in some people's heads. It's not what we want. This is what the fan base wanted. We wouldn't be doing this if the fan base didn't want it. We didn't just go. I didn't just message Pies or Matisse or they messaged me saying, "Oh, you know what? Do you fancy a laugh? Do you want to have a protest against the Ricketts on Saturday?" No, it's because everybody wanted it and the people we expected to get it from didn't deliver it for us. So,
There you go. Before I take it to Pies, Cali Docs appreciate the donation saying Ukraine situation changing, odds on Roman keeping it, and percentage odds. You probably tried to use an emoji and it didn't work. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure how exactly the Ukraine situation is changing. What I read is that the Ukraine have now attacked Russian territory. So I'm not sure what exactly is changing. I wouldn't put your hopes on. Unfortunately, you know, as much as we'd all love the war to end, well, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, before it ever started. Not sure how quickly it will, and hopefully soon, of course, but I'm not sure how big those odds are. I mean, I said it the other week. I still, to this day, wouldn't be completely shocked if at the end of the day, it all turns out that Roman's keeping it anyway, and the whole reason why things were delayed by rain and this and that was also Roman has more time to sort things and keep it. Who knows? I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying maybe there's a small chance it could happen. Pice, any last statements in terms of the protest or anything else that we've discussed before we move on?
Not really. I mean, I think you and Con covered it pretty much. I mean, yeah, just ramming home the point that it's like Con said, it's not whether you like us or not. It's the fact that this is what the majority of fans wanted. I mean, I had so many fans message me saying like, why aren't you doing anything to sort of protest? And then when we sort it, we get hit with backlash. It just doesn't really add up to me. And the most ironic thing is some of the accounts that are hating on it would have said, why didn't you lot do anything? You know, if we didn't do anything, you know what I mean? So at least we're trying. Whether it's a success or not is a different story, and it's kind of irrelevant. The point is we tried to do something. We gave people that option. You know, so I just think it's weird because if we are the shed committed to their protest, the same people hating would be the ones turning up. But because it's content creators or people with a lot of followers, they see it as kind of like for our own benefit. I just don't really see that outlook to me. I don't see how someone could have that personally.
Just for their own benefit, right? I clocked this last night. So I did a tweet last night, right, saying Ziyech has one of the best left foots in Europe, right? And that got more likes than the 2 tweets I put out about the protest. Like, I can put out just a picture of a player and just put one line, and it will get likes. Like, because I built up that following. Like, we don't need the attention. We're not gaining anything from this. Like, what do people think we're gaining? Like, honestly, what are we gaining?
I say this all the time.
So dumb.
On Twitter is like, people will say to me, "Oh, there's a narrative about being negative, right? Gets you more likes and more followers." It's literally the complete opposite of that. And it's just going to show again with this protest is it's not about likes. There's far easier way to gain likes and followers. It's about what the fan base wanted, what we believe is right. It shouldn't matter who the fuck it comes from and who starts it. But
exactly,
yeah.
bro. And another thing that jars me off of that as well is people without a following saying what it takes to get a following. Like, how do you know? If anyone's going to know, it's the people with the followings. And so you do this for that. And no, it doesn't work like that. And people saying, oh, you get money from... No, I don't get fuck all from Twitter.
Bro,
the only thing I get from Twitter is a headache.
Compared to usual, we don't have a lot of views today. That's because, I mean, to some extent, it's because people are probably a little bit tired of the whole ownership changing. It's like, you know, when obviously bad things happen in the world, people are all on it for 2-3 days. And then people almost start blocking it out because it affects them. And I understand that to some extent. And I think that's partly why it probably gets less likes, because people hate negativity in their lives. And I understand that people have their own struggles in their personal lives. That, you know, and then if your football club is in the situation we're in, it's bad. Like, you know, whether you support Chelsea or somebody else, think about like when your football club is at stake. Like, for real football fans, that's one of the worst things that can happen to them. It quite literally.
Laurenz, can I also say as well, like, this is what I don't get is a lot of the fans that are hating are like the older guys, right? Like, we're talking like 35, 40, 50-year-olds. Their basically outlook is we don't care about this protest because we've been through it in the 1980s and stuff like that when Chelsea were bad, and you modern fans just want success all the time. Like, what is that for an outlook? Like, you love Roman Abramovich because we've been so successful, yet you don't care enough to voice your opinion for someone that could come in and practically take you back to those 1980s days. Like, why would you want to be put through that again, where every season we could be in a top 4 race and not challenge it, or lose our best players like they did with
Do you know what I mean? Or worse
like,
than being
like
in a top 4 race.
With the Cubs, like, they won the World Series in 2016 and they never built on it. Like, it's not to say that the Ricketts couldn't come in, spend initially, and do really well for 2 seasons. They absolutely could. But it's more about the long term for me. These guys, you can't just expect owners to come in and sell in 5 years. That's not how this works. They've not proven anything so far in their sporting career that they have the sustainability to build a winning team. So why on earth would you want to go back to those 1980s days? Oh, we don't care about this protest because you weren't here when Chelsea was shite. You know, I'm proper Chelsea. Like, what is that attitude? I don't understand.
And on top of
it.
that, bro, is these people love going to the cup finals, the big Champions League knockout games. If you have bad owners, like,
you ain't going to have those days, bro. Like,
yeah, them days are going to be gone. They're going to be gone, and you're going to be losing out. And when the ticket prices increase, because, you know, that's what they did with the Cubs, with a team not good enough to compete. So when you're watching crap and paying top dollar for it, you're going to be annoyed. But I don't want to hear it then, because you didn't want to say anything now. So don't say it. Don't, when you're complaining about the ticket prices and that the team's crap, why are you paying so much? We don't want to hear it. I don't want anyone hearing it. Like, if you can't be asked to do anything about the situation, and
also, if you are proper Chelsea and you're not proper Chelsea if you don't give a shit about the women's team, because at Chelsea they care a lot about the women's team. We just read it out. They're literally against same-sex marriage and against anything positive about the LGBTQ plus community. Do you know who our women's team is? Our quite literally captain is homosexual in a relationship with one of our players. Like, if you care, if you're proper Chelsea, you don't just ignore this. Like, you know, proper Chelsea. I hate the fact that the term proper Chelsea became a bad thing, because I like the word proper Chelsea. Number one, if it feels nice to say, as stupid as that sounds, I'm not sure if that's just me that has it. Some things to say just sound nice, right? Proper Chelsea is one of them. But people have tarnished the whole terminology. It's ridiculous. Like, proper Chelsea should be a good thing. And you can't be proper Chelsea whether you live in London, in England, in Austria, in America, in India, in Australia. I don't give a shit where you're from. You can care. You can love the club. And if you do care and love the club, then you care about the women's team as well.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
Like, proper Chelsea, really, when I define that, it's not the people that go to games. It's the people that stay up at 3:30, 4 a.m. in the morning to catch a single dead rubber game in the Premier League. Like a Norwich, you know what I mean? They stay up these stupid, crazy hours to see these games. Like, I think, did someone say earlier, like, Chelsea won't be sold for 3 billion or 2.5 billion without the international fans? Like, honestly,
again,
I just don't understand.
I'm not saying people that go to every game in person are not proper Chelsea, because they are, but they're not the only ones that are, is what I'm trying to say.
But that's the thing. They think they are. A large majority that go to the games, they think they are that. They have that.
It's an elitist
motto.
mentality.
It's weird.
And I find it funny as well, because I see people call out, like, Pius is a season ticket holder. Like, I don't know if people know that, but he just doesn't go flexing it around, like saying, "Oh, look at me, I get a season ticket. I go to nearly every home game." Like, he doesn't go flexing it around. Like, so when they're saying stuff like, "Oh, these guys never go to Bridge," you can't say it to someone like Pius, because he does. He goes a hell of a lot, you know. So I don't understand it. Like, you don't know us. Like, we don't put our private lives or anything. We just talk about football on Twitter and stuff like that on the platforms we are, you know. And like, proper Chelsea, you're right. These days, it's sort of a cliche sort of term. It's dumb, bro. Like, if you love the club and, you know, you're proper Chelsea, that should be the meaning. It doesn't matter where you're from. You know, just treat each other with a bit of respect. Stop this elitist gatekeeping mentality everyone's got, man. Because, you know,
I've been to more Chelsea games in Europe than a lot of these fans that call people from outside of England not proper fans. Do you know what I mean? I probably won't get tickets for the Madrid away game just because of how it works on loyalty points basis. But I'll try. And if I get tickets, I will be out there. Whatever the flights cost, whatever the hotel cost, I will be there. Do you know what I mean? But hey.
And that's the thing, so, bro, just the last point I want to make out is, the thing that really annoys me is going to a game is a privilege, right? I respect anyone who goes week in, week out and support the Chelsea, you know? Massive respect. Like, I don't care if you go to every game, if you don't go to any game. As long as you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. It's just a rule in life, you know? So I don't care if you love the club, you love the club. You're the same in my eyes. But it's just, you know, to shit on people who are just not located in the area to go to the games regularly. Let's say you're from a different country. To shit on people in England who are maybe not in the financial position to go often. Like, you're a dickhead, man. Like, was you raised with no morals? Like, you shouldn't be doing that to people. And you can't really flex. I saw something really funny, so I want to tell this story. So I saw this argument between an international fan and a Chelsea match goer, right? And this match goer was saying, "Oh, you're plastic. You've never been to the game before, let alone the country." And then he was saying stuff like, yeah, go get a life, kid. Go watch your team play. The Chelsea home goer, he did some sort of manual labour job. I don't know what it is. The guy he was talking to was a doctor. You got to tell this doctor to go get a life. Are you fucking serious? Don't talk down to people like that. This guy is doing a big job. That's a big boy job, that is. Yeah. And, you know, he's not in the country or have the time to go to watch football clubs. But let's say you was in that guy's country and you're ill or one of your family members ill, you're going to that guy, you know, for help. You know, it's just be nice to people, guys. It ain't hard. Do you know what I mean? Just be nice to each other.
Exactly.
People hurt my head, bro.
Agree more. Like I went to, do you know what I mean? Like people say, oh yeah, you've been to games in Europe, to the big games. No, I didn't just go to big games. I went to Vidi. Do you know what I mean? I went to Europa League group stage game in November, or was it December? Whatever it was. It was a 12-hour drive each way. Do you know what I mean? And people were telling me, like, get in the bin. There was only 1,200 people there or so because they have a small ground, so a smaller way in. 1,200. There was more fans at the Champions League final in Porto, which was not at full capacity. I couldn't go to that, but I went to Vidi. Do you know what I mean? Don't be telling me I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Getting absolute bin. But let's move on. Let's focus on the game tomorrow as well. The first thing I want to say about this, by the way, is that I do feel bad for Thomas Tuchel, for the staff, and for the players. Obviously, the protest is early enough that it shouldn't affect the game directly, but the fact that things are going on will take a little bit of focus away. It 100% will, and that's not ideal. But that's not our fault. Alex Goldberg tweeted this and worded it quite well yesterday. I thought that's not our fault. We're not the ones that decided that the Ricketts should be on the shortlist. We're not the ones that put them in a position where it could be them that get the club. It's not our fault. We're just trying to make sure they don't get it. And we've been put in a situation where the only way we can do it, yeah, sure, we can do a protest on a Sunday, but people don't just all live in a walking distance from Stamford Bridge. Do you know what I mean? If you want to get people involved, you need to get people from outside in, and there's more likely to be people there on match day. So that's what has to be done. But I do feel bad for them, and if they come through it, big up to them. I mean, they did it for the Super League last year. They did it with all the drama going on in March, and fair flip and play. But of course, we're playing Brentford. Last time we played them, that was a bit of a dodgy one. I mean, we scraped the win. But it was difficult. But since then, Brentford haven't been in great form, I will say. Although Christian Eriksen has somehow played as well for Denmark as he ever has, even though, of course, he had his cardiac arrest during the Euros last summer. But yeah, 2 games for Denmark in this international break, scored both games. Fair play to the guy, honestly. Fair play. And of course, he's a Brentford player these days. But we need to look at things from a Chelsea perspective. The only players out missing are still Callum Hudson-Odoi, unfortunately, even though he wasn't training 2 days ago. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Thomas Tuchel again saying he's feeling his Achilles and some sort of lower back problems or whatever else. And obviously Ben Chilwell's still out with his ACL injury. But everybody else is fit, and that includes Reece James, which is fantastic news, absolutely brilliant news. I'm not sure whether he will necessarily start or not, but it's absolutely fantastic news that he will be involved. Hopefully he starts, if he can. But yeah, that's always great. Just look at the Burnley game, what a difference that made. Also, before we get into any other team things, says that Azpilicueta's contract has extended by 1 season because a clause in his contract was hit, which was about if he plays a certain number of games, I presume in this season, a clause kicks in that his contract automatically gets extended, which is why it was able to extend, even though we're currently under sanctions from the UK government, of course, in which we're not allowed to extend contracts or offer contracts to new people or sell players or buy players. The reason this was allowed to happen is because this contract was agreed, obviously, way before any sanctions were put into place. And it was just a clause in the contract that kicked in, became active, and that's why his contract extended. Obviously, that is not necessarily a guarantee that Azpilicueta will stay, but it puts Chelsea in a position where, if we so choose to, we could force him to stay. Could force him. Whether we will do that, whether he will want to stay anyway, I don't know, but we could do it. Especially with having the buyback clause and Livramento next year. I will also say, I don't think we should 100% expect Livramento to be back at Chelsea in summer 2023, just because, I mean, he left for a reason. That reason hasn't changed. So we have a buyback clause, but he will still have to agree to want to come back. So hopefully he does. But if he doesn't, we still need to figure something else out. But for at least 1 year, one more year having Azpi around, in my opinion, is the best thing we could do. Because how annoying would it be to sign a backup right back now who we basically either have to sell or stands in the way of Livramento a year later? So the ideal would literally be having Azpi for another year. We potentially sign Koundé. Obviously, this is all talk that we don't know whether it's even possible with obviously our owner situation. But in an ideal world, we keep Azpi for another year and we go get Livramento the year after. Clutch, I haven't had you as involved, obviously, because you weren't as involved with the protest stuff. But in terms of thoughts on Reece James is back, Azpilicueta's new contract, what are your thoughts on that?
Reece James being back is one of the big boosts that we need. We'll get to whether we should start him later or whether I would want him to start. But I think Azpi, probably in the middle of the season, I probably would have been like, yeah, he needs to. This was back when Roman was still in full control and we had a lot of more ability to make those decisions. But at this moment, I think I've kind of changed it a little bit. I do think we need to keep Azpi because, I mean, the unknown coming up in the summer, we're going to need to at least we need at least him and Rudiger. I think both of them have to stay because we just don't know what's going to happen in the summer with transfers. And it would be good to have him for one more season. Maybe that's when he retires here. Who knows? So for me, I think
for retirement at 33. I don't think we can ask him to retire next year. I can't lie.
I'd rather him retire than go somewhere else, or at least retire here than go
of course,
but
can't expect him to retire at 33.
But yeah, that would be where I'm at on them.
Fair dues, absolutely. Pice, why don't I ask you? Azpi's contract extension, what would you make of that? Do you think it makes the likelihood of him staying a lot bigger, or do you still think there's a good chance he's off in the summer?
So I'm so unsure about this because I think it matters less to Azpi than someone like Rudiger, who the new owners are. Like, I think because he's been here such a long time and like, obviously he's playing quite a lot now, but mainly because Reece has been out, right? So I still think he could go. I still think he might go just to go back to Spain and have a couple, maybe 2-3 years. But I mean, it definitely changes things now that we don't have to renegotiate and it's automatically extended. It definitely does change the outlook a little bit. I mean, Tuchel seems confident, I mean, he said that about Rudiger and Azpi. Maybe that's just him. But yeah, I'm not too sure yet, Laurenz, what I think will happen. It's not as clear cut as someone like Christensen. I still could see Azpi being persuaded to stay quite easily. I don't think it would take a lot to be persuaded to stay. You know what I mean? Like, I think we could quite easily say, maybe he goes like not this summer, but end of next season. You know what I mean? Maybe he goes then because he's only going to be 1 year older. Like, I'm pretty sure he can handle Spain. It's just obviously what his family wants to do as well. Like, that's what's been reported. Like, it's based on his family decision, and obviously they're settled in London. But if he wants to move, then he can move. I mean, everyone will give him a great sending off, obviously, because he deserves it. But I don't think it's as clear cut as everyone seems to make out. Like, everyone seems to assume he's going to go, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Obviously, before we knew that this contract could or would extend automatically by 1 season, the problem was more that he was asking for 2 years, and we were probably always only ever going to give him 1 year. But now that he already has that 1 year, can't really ask for 2 years if we promise him, yeah, you're allowed to go next year. Obviously, he can have the fear, what if, say, Barcelona don't want me next year? I understand that. I understand that worry from him. But I will also say, with the perspective he's in, being in the Spain squad every time, obviously at the Euros in autumn and now probably will be in their squad again in obviously June after the league seasons have ended, the domestic seasons have ended. And then there is there one international break in September, potentially still, before the World Cup starting in November. So even at staying, his chances of making the World Cup squad are quite good. So that's why, it's not even necessarily a situation where we have to persuade him much. We can just tell him, mate, come on. We will try to sign Livramento next year. We don't really want to sign a stopgap. Come on, you've been captain. You've been here for 10 years. We kind of just really need you for 1 more year, and then you can do whatever the flip you want. I feel like Azpi can be persuaded to do so. Hence why, now that this has happened, I'm personally not too disappointed with the fact that, that has been extended. The World Cup draws in half an hour, if you care. That is true, actually. That is true. I don't care. No, I do care a little bit. Oh, sure, isn't it? So that's a bit depressing. Con, thoughts on Azpi's contract being extended? What do you think?
It was always going to be extended anyway, because it was a trigger, wasn't it? So I don't think it really changes anything I think it's up to him whether he wants to stay or leave. I think Chelsea would be happy for him to stay, and they'd be happy if he leaves. Like, I feel like they said to him, You've done us a great service. If you want to stay here for another year, we don't mind. If you want to leave, we'll give you our blessing, kind of thing. But it is a bit reassuring to know that, like, if this sort of drags out and, we can't spend in the summer, worst case scenario, at least we have Azpi for another year. So I don't think he'd be the type to leave if we desperately needed him. So it's very reassuring to know.
I do agree. I absolutely do agree. So focusing on Chelsea Brentford again, even though I said that already half an hour ago, but no, actually doing it. Obviously, Brentford currently sitting 15th. What's their recent record? Let me just check. Well, they lost to Leicester. They beat Burnley. They beat Norwich. Sure. Lost to Newcastle, lost to Arsenal, drew to Palace, lost to City, lost to Everton in the FA Cup, lost to Wolves, lost to United, lost to Liverpool, lost to Southampton. Not in great form, but of course they beat Burnley and Norwich. But Burnley and Norwich are not quite Chelsea, are they? So let's focus on the team we would like to see played tomorrow. I've so far turned it up in a 3 at the back. I'm not sure whether that's necessarily what we will play, because in our last game before the international break against Middlesbrough in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup, we played a 4 at the back, my bad. Clutch, what do you think we'll play tomorrow?
I think we'll play a 3 at the back. I don't think because Pulisic is definitely not going to start, and you don't have Callum Hudson-Odoi, so you're not going to have a left winger for like a 4 at the back. So I'd probably go with the back 3.
I would probably agree. Pies, similar thoughts?
Yeah, 3-4-3 for me.
And Con, do you as well?
Yeah, I agree.
Fair dues. In goal, we will have Edouard Mendy. Big ups to him, saving a penalty in the penalty shootout against Egypt in their decisive qualifier game to qualify for the 2022 World Cup. So fair play to him. Obviously a bit dodgy with all the lasers.
I'll just say, like,
Salah, but I'm sure all the other ones too.
Can I just say that's proper creepy? You know what happened, right? African Cup of Nations final, right? So he saved Egypt's penalty. Sadio Mane scored the winner. And they play Egypt again to qualify for the World Cup. He saves Egypt's penalty, and Sadio Mane scores the winner. Like, I thought that was a bit weird. It's like fate almost.
It is honestly. But big up Mendy. What guy? What a goalkeeper. I mean, Donnarumma, Mr. Yashin Trophy, isn't going to the World Cup, and he's flipping Italian. So, get in a bit, lad. Big Mendy. But yeah, back 3. Obviously, Rudiger. He did play, I think, all 3 games for Germany, but he's Rudiger. He's always going to be fine. Now, this one I'll leave open for now, and this one I'll leave open for now, because I have a couple of options. Because Thiago Silva was on international duty with Brazil, of course, but as also confirmed by Thomas Tuchel, I say confirmed, he didn't play the 3rd game for Brazil, essentially, and also came back a day earlier than, for example, Christian Pulisic did. So Thomas Tuchel basically said it in a way, yeah, Thiago's fine to play. So I expect him to play, but I'll ask you guys, Con, do you think he will play? Obviously, we have Real Madrid on Wednesday.
Say, bro, who was that?
Thiago Silva, because he was out on international duty in Brazil, but he didn't play the 3rd game and came back a day earlier.
Yeah, no, I think he plays, bro. Like, this guy played 2 days after he came back. I think it's 2 or 1 day when he came back. I think from the last time.
He did do that. Yeah.
This guy, even at 37, bro, we've been saying, "Oh, we're scared if he gets overplayed, bro." And this guy's just been playing game after game after game. He's playing. I can't see how he done.
I probably would agree. Pies, similar thoughts, or do you think he might be left out?
Yeah, I mean, I already did this lineup on Charlie's stream. We did a prediction, so we ended up going with Thiago Silva because, like, we just both agree, really. Look, kind of like Con said, like, his durability is insane. I mean, you could not risk him, but I mean, the amount of times we've said, "Oh, he can't play this game," and then 3 days later, and he just does it. It's like, why not put him in at least, And if he doesn't start, oh well, it's even better, isn't it?
There you go. It is very true. Who do we play next weekend? Does anyone know this? Southampton away. Well, I don't know. Like, if he has to be rested for one of the 2, I'd probably rather Brentford at home than Southampton away, if I'm honest. But Southampton is probably the more important one because that's Saturday and then we play Tuesday away. While now we play Saturday on home and then Real Madrid at home on Wednesday. So I think for this one is fine. Clutch, would you agree?
I would rather rest him, similar to another player I'll mention later. I think the Real Madrid game is...
Pulisic? Why not?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't expect Pulisic to get more than like 5 minutes tomorrow, so I don't care. I'm talking about Havertz. I want to rest Havertz, or I don't want to start Havertz tomorrow. I want to wait for Madrid. I want to make sure he's fresh for Madrid. But it's kind of the same reason I would want Thiago Silva fresh for Madrid. I think we need to get off on the front foot for against Madrid. I think we're going to need all these players, and I don't want to have any sort of risk for them. So I would probably start Christensen myself and then Chalobah over there, because I don't think Chalobah is going to even have a sniff against Madrid, so it doesn't matter.
Could be. You said Chalobah on that side now. Now, let me go back the other way around. Pice, you said Thiago Silva in the middle. Does that mean Christensen on the right, or does that mean Chalobah on the right? Or does it theoretically mean Azpi at right centre back, and if we think Reece James starts right wing back?
I went with Christensen, but again, like the back three we've got now is like the one I want to play against Real Madrid, because obviously I think it's our best back three. So it's like, can all three of them then start again on Wednesday? I mean, they could, but I just don't know. It's like when I do lineup predictions, I have to kind of think like, what will Tuchel do as well? I kind of base what I think he's going to do, but I would go with Christensen. Yeah, why not? I mean, to be honest with you, like, I think we worry too much about the defense, because like Brentford are going to attack, but like I think we'll have the majority of the ball, so I expect it to be a pretty comfortable game where they're not running about as much. I don't think the defense will be as tested as other Premier League teams potentially.
Fair enough. I mean, for me, I would also pick Christensen, even if it is Reece James as our right wing back and then Azpi's left out. Just because of how Brentford play. From last time we played against them, Ivan Toney was always the one dropping off to the left. And then I think it was Christensen that game too. Wasn't a lot of aerial duels against him. And I certainly, or was it Azpi in that game? I don't even remember. But as I back Christensen a lot more in the air than Azpi, especially this season, as Christensen seems to have quite drastically improved at that. So I think he'll be able to handle that much better. Hence why I personally pick Christensen. I'd be okay with Chalobah. The one big fault to Azpi's game, in my opinion, is dealing with aerial balls. It's just not him, in my opinion. So that's why I wouldn't play him in this scenario, whether it's Thiago Silva in the middle or not. Condon, Thiago Silva in the middle, you said, is that then Christensen on the right, or is his imminent, shall we say, move to Barcelona in the summer enough for you to say it needs to be Chalobah or Azpi?
I think it's going to be Christensen, to be honest. Yeah, I think because Chalobah was sort of struggling a little bit a few games before. I don't think Azpi will play centre back. He hasn't really played centre back this much this season anyway. And Brentford are quite good in the air. They like the long throws, etc., etc. And for me, Andreas is the best out of the three in the air. So
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. But let's leave it up on screen like this, obviously, because Clutch picked Christensen in the middle and Chalobah then on the right. Let's go to the wing backs. Now, I'll start with you this time, Pice. What do you reckon? Reece James to start, or more likely to come off the bench?
Come off the bench for me at 60 minutes to replace Azpi, potentially 70 minutes.
With the hope that he can play against Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I will tell you now one thing, though. Last time we played Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final, Reece James was fit, but just not picked. Do you think that could happen again?
No,
because if that happens again, you might as well start Reece tomorrow.
Nah, Reece will 100% play against Real Madrid. 100%.
But why didn't he play last year?
I don't know, but I know he's 100% going to, he's literally been one of our best players this season,
Because Tuchel's a mad genius, that's why he didn't play. For whatever reason, he knew something we didn't.
But you think how good Vinicius has been this season on the left against, you have to have Reece against Vinicius, otherwise we are fucked.
But isn't Vinicius more against our right centre back anyway than against the right wing back? I think the right.
Well, I mean, I would expect Tuchel to put Reece defensively up against Vinicius and have him tight.
Maybe Reece will play right centre back like he did in the Champions League final.
Maybe, yeah. True, but then I don't know. It's no,
Azpi can still play both then, but Azpi obviously played for Spain as well. Although did he start the third game for Spain? Or second game for Spain? I'm not 100% sure. Spain. Let me check. Anything you want to add to that, Beth?
No, I just think Azpi will play tomorrow. With Reece coming off the bench, I don't really see a real need for him to start tomorrow. It's not like we're playing a huge team.
Yeah, and maybe give him like if we give, I think a half an hour if you can do that would be good. If it is the plan to start him against Real Madrid, just to get him a bit more match ready, match sharp, that would be nice. But on the other side, I'll quickly stick with you, Pice. But by the way, Azpi did start the last game for Spain and played 81 minutes. But on the other side, what are you thinking? Alonso, Malang Sarr, Saul, Kennedy.
Yeah, it was between Saul or Alonso for me.
Yeah.
I think we ended up going with Alonso, me and Charlie, but something tells me he's going to rest Alonso and play Saul. I don't know why, because then you'd think, well, why wouldn't you rest some other players? But I don't know. Did Alonso even play for Spain? Like,
he played the first game. He didn't play the second game.
Okay, well then I think Alonso's going to start then if he's not played.
Yeah. Alonso came on after 58 minutes and got 2 assists. Fair play. But they did beat Iceland 5-0. So, and Iceland are not the Iceland of 2016 anymore.
Yeah, no, I'd go with Alonso. Fuck it.
Would you, obviously we'll do another Real Madrid preview on Tuesday, but does Alonso also start against Real Madrid for you?
So I had Azpi on the left wing back against Real Madrid and Reece and Christensen on the right hand side.
Can I ask you something? Just remember from before Reece got injured, but when Chile was already injured. Whenever we did play one of Azpi or Reece on the left, it was always Reece and never
Reece
Azpi.
played on the left. I did say that. I was like, I was thinking that. I was like, did he do that again? But then, I mean, it's just Vinicius. But Vinicius for me is the one that, like, Benzema's unbelievable, right? But I don't know, Vinicius is the one for me that is just could cause us so many problems if he's not against someone that's like Reece James, who's just going to put it on him. You know what I mean? Like, I think Azpi would try. And Christensen will try, but Reece James for me has to be on the right hand side against Real Madrid.
Yeah, I hear that. I wouldn't mind him at right centre back, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, wherever it is, I don't want him on the left. Wherever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just because if you play Reece on the right as a wing back, because of Vinicius, maybe he will automatically have to be more defensive. And that means we take away his offensive output. And Real Madrid's right side, whether it's with Carvajal, Rodrigo, Bale, whoever else, sometimes Hazard, whoever they obviously Hazard is injured or recovering from surgery after removing a plate from a previous surgery from his tibia. But their right side is certainly worse than their left side. So if you want Reece's maximum attacking output, maybe you need to put him on the left, just so he doesn't have to deal with the defensive side.
But then when we're on the attack, it's like I trust AC 1v1. So if obviously because our centre backs push up when Reece and the wing backs go up, it's like if we do get caught on the counter, like first off you have AC against Vinicius, but then like I feel like Reece is going to get back pretty quickly anyway. Like I think he's smart like that. Like he'll go forward, but I don't think it'll be like, you know, all hell goes loose. You know what I mean? And we just attack. Like there's got to be some balance, and that's where I think that's where it's up to Tuchel. You know.
I hear you. We'll talk about it again in more detail on Tuesday with your expert as well, who, in his opinion, Real Madrid are worse this year than last year. And judging from the Clasico just before the international break, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. Con, let me get to you. The 2 wing backs for tomorrow. Would you start Reece James? And if not, who would you fill those 2 positions with?
Firstly, I would start Reece James, but I think it might be Azpi for the check because Real Madrid in Champions League. But then again, Reece James, he got injured again and he was out for like a few weeks, so maybe it might be Reece James actually. No, I think it's gonna be Reece James to get some sort of match sharpness more than anything, and I think it will be Alonso. So I think it might be Alonso. Yeah, that's how for me.
If I ask you that way,
if who would I pick? I'd pick
if I'd
Alonso.
ask you who would you pick?
I think I'd pick Alonso and Reece James as well, actually. So I want Reece James to get some match sharpness more than anything.
I hear that. Clutch then. Reece on the right, does he only get like 20 minutes, half an hour in your eyes, and it's then Azpi? And who do you start on the left?
Yeah, I'd give Reece like 20, 30 minutes at the end of the game. We rushed him back too soon in the first place, and he went and got hurt. So let's give it some time, give him 30 minutes here, make sure he's fine. And I kind of want to play Saul on the left, but if I have Azpi on the right, then I'm going to go with Alonso.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Okay.
I know I hate myself for it.
Sorry?
I said I hate myself for saying that, but I did it.
I hear it. Like, I probably agree with Python and Clutch, if I'm honest, in terms of Azpi. Obviously, we don't know for sure whether Reece was just unlucky to get that second injury or was it playing too soon. Who knows? Well, we'll probably never know for sure. But yeah, I'd probably give him. I'd honestly very much so give him half an hour. Maybe I'd even give him the whole second half. But I might not start him on the left side. I'd personally probably go Saul anyway, if I'm honest. In terms, if I did predict 11, I think Alonso is more likely, but I'd pick Alonso. I'd pick Saul. Sorry. Let's move to the midfielders. My apologies. Of course, Jorginho, poor guy, not made the World Cup with Italy. It's just Italy protesting the World Cup in Qatar. It's totally understandable. Just a very respectable decision to take up. But obviously, unfortunately for him, after missing the 2 penalties in 2 individual games against Switzerland in the qualifiers, which is why they didn't top that group and qualify directly, he has certainly been a little bit, just clearly hurt, right? Understandably so. But Thomas Tuchel said he came back from international duty a day earlier than he even had to. After also Italy, fair play to Roberto Mancini in that sense. After we obviously gave him the rest against Middlesbrough in the FA Cup, they didn't play him in their second international game this break, after obviously losing in the first playoff game. Their second game was done a friendly, so they sent him home early, or sent him back to Chelsea early, which I appreciate. So, and Thomas Tuchel said he's been looking strong in training, so that's going to be an interesting one. And N'Golo Kante, for whatever those personal reasons may have been, didn't initially join up with the French squad, but like a few days later did join up with them, and I think played in their second game, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously Mateo Kovacic was that with Croatia. Now, Con, why don't I start with you this time? Who will be your midfield? Probably from those 3, but obviously, I guess you could throw Ruben Loftus-Cheek in there too. Also, if it doesn't start on the left, I suppose.
I reckon it's going to be. I think it's going to be Kovacic and Jorginho. I think it's going to be.
Kovacic and Jorginho, why not? Well, what exactly are your reasons for that? And is that with slightly thinking ahead of Real Madrid too? Or is that just...
Yeah, that's with me just thinking ahead to Real Madrid. Champions League, Kante is he's a different beast, so you want to make sure he's fit. I think Jorginho definitely starts this game, but I don't know whether it's with Kante or Koa.
I do hear that. It's a tough one. I'd probably pick the same, but I'm still undecided on who I'd pick against Real Madrid. Basically, do I pick Jorginho and Kante, or do I pick Kovacic and Kante? Because Kante needs to play against Real Madrid, that's for sure. But yeah, I'd probably agree with Con on this, to be honest. Clutch, would you agree with Con as well on Kovacic and Jorginho for tomorrow?
100%. Every reason he said is exactly why I would pick those 2. I think Kante is 100% needed for Madrid. He's going to be the guy who's going to have to take out the midfield. And we know Kante has been injury prone this season, so let's just give him a rest, save him for midweek, and then we'll go out with these 2 guys. I mean, Kovacic is our best midfielder currently, so he's got to start out. And then Jorginho, it's between Jorginho and Kante for me these days. Kovacic is a must start, so I'm going to go Jorginho.
Fair dues. Pice, your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Kovacic and Jorginho, similar reasons. Want to rest Kante. I mean, don't think Kante's been great in the Premier League recently, to be fair, but as you say, Champions League seems to just go.
He wasn't good away at Lille, I will say.
Yeah, that's true, but I think Real Madrid, GOAT Kante is going to come out. So, or I hope so anyway. But yeah, Kovacic, Jorginho should be a nice little pivot for tomorrow. Yeah, why not? I don't see like a Ruben or Saul starting person.
Fair. And just because I do know you need to head off in just a second. What's your front 3 as well, mate?
See, I debated this a lot with Charlie. It was quite funny. We couldn't really settle with Real Madrid in mind, but I went with Ziyech on the right, Mason Mount on the left, and Lukaku up top. Mainly because I think, one of the reasons is because I don't really want to see Timo Werner, to be quite honest with you. But I think Mason Mount didn't play in the England's last game, he was completely rested. So, I mean, is it really wise to not let him play for 2 consecutive games, England and then Chelsea? Don't really think so. So I think Mount starts. Ziyech, we don't. I mean, we don't really have much options, to be honest with you. Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi ain't going to play. So I think Ziyech is going to start. Obviously, he's not played for Morocco, right? So rumours of him going back as well, by the way, which is interesting. But I think he kind of shut them down. So yeah, I
If
think
they
it'll be
change
those
their
two.
manager or president, he might. But
Yeah, I think they like initially picked him, and then Ziyech came out and said like, "Oh, focuses on
no.
Chelsea." So we'll have to see what happens there. But for me, the easiest one is Lukaku up top for this game because I want Havertz to play against Real Madrid. Havertz can come on in this game, but he has played quite a bit for Germany, so I just want to be careful with Real Madrid in mind. And I think Tuchel is also bigging up Lukaku in the press conference, and whenever he does that about a player that doesn't or isn't playing as much, kind of means they're getting a start. That's the only thing I can kind of get from Tuchel in his press conferences. Like it seems to happen. So, and also, I mean, he's been training the whole international break. So, obviously, he scored against Middlesbrough as well. Why not play him? And if he plays bad, sub him off. Simple as that, really.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But it's obviously when you do need to leave, just shout us. But for the time being, I guess, stick around. I let Congo. I let Congo first. Let me see. Con, do you agree with Pice, or would you pick a different front three? Obviously, Callum being unavailable and Pulisic being very unlikely to feature after only getting back, I think, today. So being tired, being jet lagged, or was it last night, whatever. But being tired, being jet lagged, being having literally just played for the US, of course, for them qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, to be honest. Lukaku didn't go to Belgium, did he? So he'll probably play because obviously Real Madrid midweek, you want Kai ready for that. But it wouldn't surprise me if Kai played as well, to be honest. It really wouldn't surprise me if Kai started. If
Maybe
Kai starts over, yeah, they could. Yeah, maybe we've got it wrong. We play a back four, Sarr left back. Yeah. But I'll stick with that because to me, in my head, that makes sense. That front three.
That is reasonable. Clutch, what about you? Is that your front three as well? I mean, you hinted at it earlier that you would rest Kai.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and I know people in the chat are talking about, like, we need to start Kai because we look so much better and we need him to be at peak form. Kai's been in peak form. He was good for Germany, and he didn't start the game before international break. He was rested. We need him for Madrid. There can be zero chance that we go out there for 70 minutes and he pulls something. We can't do that. We have to save him. And Lukaku should be good enough to beat Brentford. Why? I don't know why we're going to have that thought that he's not. He's a £100 million striker. He needs to somewhere play to get form up. Now, for me, the other two, it's Mason Mount and Ziyech. I think this game is for them. I think whoever plays better, I think that's who's going to start because I think our front two of our front three for Madrid are pretty much sorted within Pulisic and Havertz. So I think it's between Mount and Ziyech. And I think this is where we need to see one of them step up and to get the form going so they have so we can decide who starts against Madrid. But that would be where I'm at. I don't think we need Havertz for this. He could come on for like 20 minutes. Maybe that can maintain some form. Same with Pulisic. If Pulisic is able to even play even any minutes. But for me, that would be my front three as well.
Now, I would still pick Kai, and for once, this isn't actually because I hate Lukaku. I mean, partly, I'm sure, but my reasoning behind it, I get what Clutch is saying in terms of we need to make sure he doesn't get injured, but that can happen in training. That could happen in the first 10 minutes of the game against Real Madrid. That can always happen. And he's not exactly being overplayed. Sometimes players just play 7 or 10 games in a row, like Lukaku did until he obviously was dropped for the Champions League home game against Lille. If you play 10 games in a row, pretty much play full 90 in all of them, then it's a different situation. But like you also said, Clutch, he was rested against Middlesbrough. Yeah, he played for Germany, but was subbed off after 65 in the second game. The reason why I would pick him is, and I think what people sometimes underestimate after the international break, the players didn't see each other for 2 weeks. It's easy in those 2 weeks playing with different players, playing in different systems, playing with just, in a different structure, to lose a bit of a link up that you had with each other, to lose a bit of not just form yourself, but form with others, understanding each other. And I think it wouldn't be bad, or I think it would be better to use this game against Brentford to make sure everything is still flowing between Kai, Mount, potentially Ziyech. Obviously, we don't know if Ziyech plays or Mount start against Real Madrid, I guess. But my expectation would be Kai, Mount, Pulisic against Real Madrid. But we'll see and talk about that on Tuesday. But I just want things to be flowing and not Kai needing the first 20 minutes of the game against Real Madrid to get back into it because, you know, he hasn't played with Mount in 2 weeks. I don't want that. So I'd rather Kai get played here, rested against Southampton, play Lukaku against them, and then play Kai against Madrid in the second leg. That's what I would do. I understand Lukaku wasn't an international duty, but I don't care about that. I care about us getting the best possible results. And I think to get the best possible result against Real Madrid, it's better to play Kai tomorrow. Fair enough, people disagree with that, but that's how I see it. That's why I think it's sometimes important. And that's my only reason why I would consider starting Reece tomorrow, because I'm not trying to keep him safe for Real Madrid. I'm trying to get him back into it for Real Madrid. That's why I said if he comes on at least the latest as 60 minutes, fine. But if it's any later than that, I would rather start him because, yeah, that's how I look at it. Obviously, I understand.
Laurenz, would you then play Lukaku against Southampton then?
I would.
You would,
because then things are more back into the flow. Also, there's a smaller 1 day less between Southampton and the next Real Madrid game than we have between tomorrow and the Wednesday Real Madrid game. Plus, it's away, so rest is then a bit more relevant, I would say. And I also think Lukaku actually works better against Southampton than he does against Brentford, because Brentford would just park. They have strong centre backs, so that's exactly what Lukaku struggled with so far in the Premier League. While Kai makes these kind of big, tall, strong centre backs kind of get dizzy a little bit by just running rings around them. While Southampton, with the way they play, you can often actually hit them on a counter. And as we are well aware, that's the only thing Lukaku is actually quite good at. So my logic is Lukaku makes more sense against Southampton. Sure, some people might say just play him against both, and Kai plays both games against Real Madrid. Fair enough too. But yeah, no, I gave my reasons. I explained my reasons why I think it's smarter to start Kai, just to make sure things are good for Madrid. But I also understand, obviously, the other perspective on it. One last thing that we should maybe discuss before we finish this out here. The decision has been made by Premier League clubs. From next season onwards, we will have 5 substitutions in the Premier League. Of course, every other competition, not sure if in the world, but in Europe at least, has already seen the light. You know, the FA Cup has, the Carabao Cup has, the Champions League, every international game. The Premier League was just the only one that, you know, was a bit late, as usual, really. Took them too long to bring in VAR. Then they failed at bringing in VAR because it's shit. But hey, here we are. Better late than never, I suppose. Even though, I mean, I know it's 1st of April now, and there's only 2 months to go of the season. And I know, obviously, integrity of the league with some teams against certain teams having then 5 subs, I guess. But why did they decide today or yesterday that there will be 5 subs in the Premier League next season? Why isn't that something I guess decided in May? Like, these people just have not enough shit to do, clearly. Otherwise, why are you having a meeting about that in March? I don't understand at all. But in general, I'm very happy about it. And I completely agree with what Thomas Tuchel said in the press conference today, because obviously Jurgen Klopp's favourite example, Burnley, I think personally also small teams will benefit from this, because small teams don't beat big teams on footballing ability anyway. They beat big teams or steal points from big teams due to intensity and work rate. And if anything, the smaller teams can keep that intensity and work rate up for longer in the game if they can make 5 subs. But I do also see the criticism of some people about 5 subs, where it almost takes responsibility away from the manager, because it doesn't really matter that much who you start if you can change half the team. Which I do agree with to some extent. I do see that, but it puts an emphasis on a manager's job in a different area of the pitch. Like, number one, you need to almost have your team ready for, once we've made 3 subs, 4 subs in a game, how things are going to be different. You almost prepare for that. Which other players that you bring on? What part of the game does which player play? So yes, it takes that aspect away, that it's less important who starts, but it brings different things into the game. So in my opinion, obviously I'm a big fan of it. The biggest reason why I'm a big fan of it is because it's just stupid that there's some competitions that have it and some competitions that don't. If every competition had 3 subs, I don't think any of us would be complaining so much about needing 5 subs. But because everybody else has it, it's just like, we're just trying to be special. It's just like when England tried Brexit. It's the same thing. It's just like, oh, you know, we can't do what everyone else does. Sorry if that offended anybody, but it's, in my opinion, true. But Pice, you're still here, so I'll ask you first, just in case you do need to head off. Thoughts on the 5 subs?
Don't really care, to be honest with you. Uh, I know people are in big favour of it, but I mean, I always say I think 3 subs is enough if you time them correctly. I mean, of course, there's some occasions where you would like a 4th sub if certain circumstances go on throughout the game. So I guess it's good in that sense, but um, I don't think we'll see many occasions where people just chuck 5 subs on, man, just chuck 5 or 4 subs on personally. But we'll have to see. Maybe it becomes like that. Maybe it's a reason in the transfer market to get more depth because then you have more options, I guess, to use. So yeah, we'll have to see. But personally, I don't really care too much about it. It's not that big of a difference for me.
Yeah. I think with the season we've had, I kind of disagree because it's just, especially players coming back from long injuries, having 5 subs makes it much easier to bring them back. When you only have 3 subs, it's very difficult.
I guess it's good for the big clubs as well when you play against Champions League teams. Like, for example, like if we had 5 subs against Brentford, like maybe we could start Reece James, and you know what I mean. Like we could start him anyway, but like it makes more sense then to put your strongest team out because then you can always just sub them off if you've got.
There would be less of a question: oh, do we start Thiago Silva?
Yeah,
Because if you have 5 subs, just sub him off.
Exactly, like yeah.
So there you go. Clutch, your thoughts? 5 subs? Happy with that?
I'm in favor of it, but I think it's something that's long overdue. I mean, everybody else except the Premier League was doing it. I understand where they're like, yeah, it gives bigger teams an advantage, sure, but also it keeps players safe. If there's a danger of getting injured, we can take players off. We're not sitting there having to overplay players, and then hopefully, I mean, the situations like Reece James and where we get muscle injuries like pretty much throughout December, those problems don't happen as much if we have more subs. So for me, I think it's if you're going to ask the players to play more games, then having more subs is the right thing to do. I mean, some of our players just played 3 games for their international team and then come back and ask to play more games. So it's more fair if we can have more subs, and that way players aren't having such an overload on their bodies. And especially when FIFA wants to add more games or change the World Cup to every 2 years, I think if you're going to start asking,
I know the FIFA one now, it's never going to happen.
No, it's not. But if you're going to ask,
never is maybe the wrong word, but not in the next 10 years, no chance. Where would you put the other tournaments? Copa America, Euros, Africa Cup of Nations. When would those things happen? It's ridiculous. You need time for qualifiers. I don't understand this idea at all. Oh, sorry, go on.
I also think the World Cup loses significance if you put it every 2 years. I don't think it becomes as big. I think people will get bored of it very quickly. But yeah, I think if you're playing more games, you just need more subs because that protects players. That's where I see it.
Fair. And Con, thoughts on the 5 subs?
I remember we spoke about this before, didn't we? How the league with the most money in world football is the only one not to have it was funny, wasn't it? Like 5 subs makes sense. It's better for everyone, you know. Like in hectic seasons, obviously you get injuries, players are playing a lot, take some of the the load off. It's only a good thing. 5 subs. It's only a matter of time, and we finally got it, bro. So it'll be a good thing. It'll definitely be a good thing when you've got a few players on the pitch you don't really want to be playing, and if they're playing bad, it's less risky taking them off now. So it's only a good thing.
100%. And one last thing before we leave things here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, number one, I appreciate you very much. Subscribe and smash the like button. But if you live in and around London or even anywhere else in the UK and you're willing to make the trip, make sure you get yourself to Stamford Bridge. NoToRicketts Protest before the game tomorrow, 12 o'clock midday. At Stamford Bridge, a Stamford Bridge gate to be more specific. Like the thing on screen says, we can no longer just stand around or sit around. We must now stand together. We must, because we don't want the Ricketts for various reasons. Political reasons, sporting reasons, all the reasons. And if any of the reasons you care about, check out all of our social medias. We've put all of the things on there. If you, for some reason, only tuned in late and didn't see it earlier, we won't get to go through all of it again now. But if you want to get, I'm not a fan of what they're trying to do, of what we're worried about, then get involved. It doesn't matter who, like I said earlier. If you don't like me, it doesn't matter. If you don't like Con Pice, doesn't matter. If you don't like any of the other people that are, were part of organizing it, whether it's Matisse, whether it's Eunice, whether it's Jan, whether it's George Benson, it doesn't matter. Whether you don't like us. Just, if you don't want the Ricketts, try to have your voice heard. We don't know for sure whether it's going to work, but we have to try. We don't know if it's going to work if we don't try. It worked last time for the Super League. So I think it's certainly worth an effort to try again and to make sure. Yeah, sure, you can say they won't get it regardless of a protest. Maybe. But are you willing to take that risk? I'd rather try. And with this, I can't be that person, but I'm trying to get as many people to get to it via social media. So, if you are a fan of me, though, unlike, the people I mentioned who go even if you don't like me, but if you do like me and you're not sure about to go for me because I can't go, please. But yeah, I think we're going to round it out here. Again, hopefully the players and Tuchel and, everybody else, they can almost look past the protest and focus on the game regardless and get the 3 points because not only, like Pi said, we're not really fighting for much in the Premier League, but we still need to make sure, number one, we finish top 4. And also a loss is the last thing we really need before Real Madrid now. Get the vibes going, get the positive situation flowing. Ideally, we get a couple of goals that don't make it as difficult as we did last time out against Brentford, away at Brentford. Let's hope we can give at least the season ticket holders a good day out. Still ridiculous to this day that we can't sell home tickets to members, but we can sell home tickets to members for the Champions League. It's stupid. But hey, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in today. Again, subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button, follow, and subscribe, and check out all of my guests down in the description below. Of course, Clutch, check out his Twitter, check out Con's Twitter, check out Pice's Twitter, and his website, ChelseaFC365. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards. Make sure you go to the protest tomorrow. Keep it peaceful, bring your banners, and we'll see you next time.